Wanted to get on board and have Steve Cotton join us, and he is one of North America's leading financial analysts, and we're going to take a look at some of the headlines going on, the tariff scenario, and all that. And Steve, I want to welcome you back. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Mark. I am just great and glad to be with you.
I appreciate it, and let's talk a little bit about you. You, of course, are in the Dallas area. Just like me, you analyze the markets and do some really great work. A little bit about your background, if you will. Welcome.
Well, thank you. My background's very unique. I have had 4 or 5 successful careers, including service as a senior staffer in the Texas Legislature, Senate, and in the House. And then worked for 3 members of Congress in Washington. Then in the national security arena, I have a master's degree in government and national security studies. And, of course, I've been in financial services and investments and risk management for going on 25 years. So we manage large clients, small clients, big foundations, church accounts, all kinds of things. But we're a very family-centric financial planning and investment stewardship shop here in Dallas. CottonWMA.com is our website. But I've kept my hand in national security studies, global economics. I follow all of this.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's really some very interesting times that we're living in, and no question about that. The NATO meetings are underway, and President Trump, I was reading, doubling down on his assertion that U.S. bomb strikes destroyed Iran's nuclear program, critical. Reporting on an initial U.S. intelligence report suggested the bombings likely set Iran's nuclear program back by only a few months and not years, and he was upset by those remarks at the NATO meeting. Got to get your thoughts on what is going on when we've got differing rivers or streams, if you will, of information coming out like that. How does the market view all of this? Uncertainty, I would imagine that's one thing the markets don't need right now. What do you say about that from the world stage?
Well, there's what's called a battle damage assessment, a BDA, going on right now at the Pentagon. The Israelis are doing one. The Iranians are certainly doing one. And it's not clear. This is a highly technical assessment, and you almost have to have spies on the ground looking at, engaging what the damage is. I think the reports are preliminary, and that therefore they're incomplete. So I would withhold judgment on anything. I wouldn't necessarily take what the White House is saying at face value. I wouldn't take the leak that came out at face value. The real full assessment has yet to be done and is going to take some time. I'm much more concerned about things like what is the Iranian capacity to mine the Strait of Hormuz with their assets. And that is one of those areas that had surprisingly little, if any, discussion, and that is a key question going forward.
And Steve, I think one of those questions might be the fact that the Strait of Hormuz has been known to be the gateway, if you will, for I think it's 20 to 25% movement of the world's oil supply. And in a case scenario like that, if the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, I would imagine that the reaction on the military front is going to be swift, to say the very least. In the short term, could we maybe see a rise in crude oil prices from this? Maybe, I guess, like a yo-yo effect up and down on the price scale? How do you see all that?
Well, we've actually seen that this past week. Brent North Sea crude got up to about $77 and change per barrel. After the ceasefire was announced, oil fell to about $67 a barrel and then ticked up back to $70. So it's all a function of what the forces and nations see as potential for disrupted supply. However, it's really not in the Iranians' interest to shut off commerce in the Strait of Hormuz because China is their biggest customer right now. And that would royally hack off the Chinese. I don't think that's something they're likely to do. The other reason why I don't think it's likely is, number one, the last time they did that, Ronald Reagan destroyed their Navy. And we've got so many assets in the area right now that I'm curious as to whether those Iranian naval assets have already been neutralized and this is all a moot point, or whether they don't dare do it because they know we would take out the remnants of their Navy.
And well, does this also bring up the idea, Steve, that maybe we have got too much of a dependence on foreign oil supplies? I know the shale industry here in Texas is booming. I mean, it's going gangbusters, to say the least. And can we, or have we already maneuvered ourselves to be the front leader here, that maybe we can start to wean ourselves off of that overseas crude? We close to that? Long way to go? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in Trump's first administration, we actually, because of his policies, we actually became a net oil exporting country for the first time. And that also helped drive down the price of oil. That's why people and truckers' price at the pump was much lower back in the first administration. Mm-hmm. The critical choke point in U.S. oil and gas exploration and production has been the permitting. And the Biden administration shut down and curtailed and revoked lots of permits that the oil industry was planning to exploit. Mm-hmm. They did it deliberately to curtail the domestic oil industry. But Texas is considered the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We've got huge natural gas supplies. The Keystone Pipeline was intended to help bring Canadian crude down to Texas ports, ports to our NATO allies. That is still Trump's plan, and the Trump administration, not only have they encouraged large-scale production and more fracking and such, but they have also addressed the permitting problem, which is really at the core of U.S. production. So I think we're going to see large U.S. production. I think we will be less dependent on the Middle East going forward, and that's a good thing. But we still have to be sensitive to the fact that our NATO allies are heavily dependent on oil from the Middle East, and we don't want them to go back to a reliance on Russian gas, which just subjects them to Russian blackmail.
Yeah, and speaking of the natural gas market, I was reading an article the other day that indicated we've got so much natural gas that can be harvested then put into use, and it is like one of the real bright spots. But it's cheaper also, as well, much cheaper than what many might think. But it seems like it's kind of overlooked as maybe being one of those go-to fuels that we need to look at in this day and age. Why do you think that is, in your estimation? The natural gas is kind of being shunned, in other words, a little bit.
It's less sexy than oil, but it is a critical part of our energy matrix. And a lot of communities, for example, I think Dallas bus transit system has switched to natural gas. A lot of cities have switched to natural gas for their fleets. And this is a part of the equation, but really, ultimately, we want to be able to export liquid natural gas to our allies to strengthen our alliance, to boost our exports, and this is a huge bright spot for the future. I think the Trump administration has it exactly right. We still need to maintain wind energy and solar power. Those are good energies. Those are all part of the matrix, but they're not as reliable as oil and gas are. And I think given the fact that petroleum products are literally in almost everything we make, even medicines and plastics, that's going to be a part of our national economic picture for a long time to come, and we're never going to be able to completely replace oil and natural gas. We're also going to ramp up nuclear, which we have the issue of what do you do with the nuclear waste. That's still a present concern. But the best nations take an all of the above approach. Just make sure there are environmental safeguards in place. And
well, when a lot of folks hear, Steve, like nuclear energy coming to the forefront, I remember these days 3 Mile Island and the meltdown that happened there. And now I think there's plans to fire that thing back up, as a matter of fact, in other words. That Meta is looking to engage in that. That's for another story for another day. But how do you convince the American public, the global public, that nuclear is clean, it's safer, it is maybe the wave of the future? How do we get rid of maybe those misconceptions in light of 3 Mile Island?
Well, it's hard to do because you've got Chernobyl over in the Ukraine. You've got 3 Mile Island. You've had the Fukushima reactor in Japan when they had their tsunami. You've had some isolated cases where there have been catastrophic situations, and this was usually a failure of safety systems, a failure of protocols. But in fact, nuclear power is safer than almost any other kind of power, not including wind and solar. But nuclear power, we're now rediscovering, has its utility, but we still have to address the radioactive waste solution.
Yeah.
And right now, there's a big issue with putting it out in West Texas. There's been a court case about that. So it's a complicated issue, but I think the public is still a little bit sensitive to it because of these very minimal and isolated cases where we had a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the 3 Mile Island was back in 1979, if my memory serves me right. And, man, that's, 40-plus years? Maybe, wow, that's a long time ago. But it's still very much in the forefront for a lot of folks on the mind. All right, Steve, I got a break. For the commercial thing, ladies and gentlemen, love to get you on board. We're analyzing the financial and the economic and the global headlines with Steve Cotton. And he's on board. If you got a question for him, just give us a call at 888-876-2336, 8888 Road Dog. We got to do the commercial break. Then we're back on the other side right here on SiriusXM 146. Number one. Steve Cotton is on board. One of North America's leading financial analysts. He's got a great resume, great background. And, Steve, again, thanks very much for joining me on the show. Let's get your website out there, sir, and your phone number. Where can folks call you?
Our website here in Dallas is Cotton, COTTON, WMA.com. And our office phone number is 214-420-4440. We are a very small, family-centric, very client-centered financial planning and investment practice. But I have a very unique background that really, I think, equips me to see the bigger picture, read between the lines, and make good, credible investment recommendations for our clients.
Okay, absolutely. And again, thanks very much for joining me on the show. Let's talk about the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve Board Chairman Jerome Powell he was in front of the Congress a day or so ago talking about the fact that the Fed is going to be holding the interest rate parameters holding steady at this point, no up, no down, but he was thinking, or the comments came out, that maybe we could see two interest rate cuts by the end of the year. And President Trump has unleashed a barrage of comments against Jerome Powell. But just to set the stage, the Fed is independent, and they operate independent of the presidency, don't they?
Well, the Fed was designed to be independent, and the Fed has two missions. The first mission is to regulate the money supply to combat inflation, and the second is to try to encourage full employment without inflation. This is very different than, say, the European central banks, which are focused only on the money supply and the inflation issue. But the president's very frustrated with Powell, although I think it's fair to say Powell has been trying to be a good steward and be diligent. We still don't know yet what the impact of the tariff policy and the tariff agreements is going to be. I think the Fed can be granted a little grace in that we don't know whether tariffs are going to be inflationary or not. So far, they have not been. But I don't think we'll see two rate cuts this year. I think we'll more likely see one, possibly in November or December, and it'll be a 25 basis point cut. I think if we have ones beyond that, it'll be next year, not this year.
Well, and interesting you mentioned that because the midterms are going to be coming up. I know it's a number of months away. And the economy is going to be one of the major talking points for that. So how would you differentiate, or what would you tell your clients how to differentiate between fact and fiction when it comes to economic policy, economic notes. I mean, first thing, call you, and they'll get the answer. But multiple stories swirling around. How do you differentiate what's between right and wrong, in your estimation, with those stories?
Well, it's not easy. We have more information hitting people now than ever before. Market information, investment information, news and politics and global stuff. And yet I think it's more and more difficult for people to really discern what you're talking about, to pull the real stuff and the useful stuff out of the noise. Really, I think you have to step back and look at the big picture, look at the forest. This is the forest. Trump is trying to negotiate lower tariffs and lower barriers to our entry of our products overseas, and I think he's going to be largely successful, although it'll take some time to do this. I think that effort will continue in through the summer, and we probably aren't going to know the full extent of his success until August or September. The Congress is moving forward. The House has already passed the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, reinforcing and reauthorizing the Trump tax cuts of 2017. I think the Senate will pass something, but right now they are playing with key elements of it. They're a little bit more cautious about trimming Medicaid, but I think once this bill is passed, we'll have certainty, and that will be a huge boost for the stock market and individual investors.
Yeah, and the investors are going to be looking at the Fed again, right, for interest rate cuts, maybe looking at home purchases, big-ticket items, and with Jerome Powell stating earlier that, they're just going to sit tight at the moment. I've got to imagine that when two of his regional Fed governors come out this week and say, well, we think there's going to be a rate cut in July. So does that complicate that message from Jerome Powell and his two discerning viewpoints that are not in agreement with him? What are your thoughts here?
Well, it does complicate things, but again, I don't ever predict what the Fed's going to do.
Right.
And I don't think you should make investment changes in a portfolio based on any one factor. It really needs to be a combination of factors. And if you've got a good, diversified, high-quality portfolio strategy in place, like our clients do, you don't really have to worry about any one individual factor. The more important factors are your estimated lifespan, your financial goals, your sensitivity to risk and volatility, your family needs, things like that. When you're going to retire and turn on Social Security, those are the kinds of things that really ought to influence your investment strategy more than any one short-term market factor.
Yeah, in other words, don't panic, right? If you open your 401k, this too shall correct. In other words, right? What do you think?
Well, that's right. It's ironic, but the clients that tend to do the best and outperform are the ones that don't pay much attention to their, what the market's doing on any given week or month. The clients that tend to underperform are the ones that look at the market every day. They make emotional decisions. They adjust things. They try to time the market, and they inevitably do the wrong thing for the wrong reason at the wrong time, just because they're investing emotionally, and that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I was reading about timing the market, that is a no-no when it comes to investing, timing the market.
Well, the track record of market timers is historically abysmal.
Okay.
Even the finest professionals don't try to time the market excessively. Now, you'll get day traders in that will make moves on individual currencies or play options, things like that. But the average investor out there that's building a portfolio for retirement engages in market timing at their own risk, and the professionals don't try to do it. Instead, they build a portfolio for clients based on their needs and their risk sensitivity and their financial objectives, and they don't get in and out of the market. They don't go to cash every time, there's a crisis overseas. The wise investors and the wise professionals build a workhorse that gets you through the worst of the fluctuations.
Absolutely. So probably it sounds like for me, I need to go back into my portfolio and maybe get rid of that Braniff stock or that Pan Am stock. No, I'm just kidding about that. But,
Well,
you got to stay on top of the game, don't you, right? And that's why folks need to turn to you and to get the information that they need on the financial markets, the portfolio adjustments that need to go on every now and then also examining the headlines. Steve, thank you very much. You're going to wrap it up, and let's get your website out there again and the phone number. Where can folks find you? What's the best way?
Well, thank you, Mark. It's been a joy to be with you again. I love your trucker audience. They are the greatest in the world. My website is cotton, COTTONWMA.com. And my office number here in Dallas is 214-420-4440. Anybody's welcome to call and do a consultation at no cost. I talk to a lot of people. I do a lot of portfolio reviews, and we're in the business to just help folks. We don't have a sales agenda, no products to push. We are your independent financial advisor that's focused on good advice for you and your family.
Outstanding. We'll do it again, Steve. Thank you, man. And, we got to get lunch since we're right down the road from each other. That is financial analyst Steve Cotton.